Welcome to Mwalimu Ogeke channel. Today I want to take you through this Excel sheet whereby I'll be explaining on how to use VBA loop to search for information and display it and then print it finally. For instance, I have several students here. I want to filter these students. Those who have A's, I can have the A's separate, the E's separate, so that I'll be able to display them and know the number of the students with E's, students with B's, and all that. So I'll start by having a list here. Let me have a list at this point, J, that is J1. So I'll click to data. I go to advanced data. I was supposed to let me cancel. I was supposed to go to conditional formatting, data validation, so that I pick a list. I make a list now. Here I use list. I make a list, and the list I want to be displaying students with A. Students with A. I want to be displaying A minus. I want also to display, you use a comma. I want also to display P plus. I use a comma. B, I want to display comma. I want to display those with B minus. Use a comma. I want to display those with C plus. Use a comma and all that. So you can be counting the number of students who have such grades. Now, if that is what I want, I click OK here. So I shall have a list here with A minus, and all that. So I want to start, for instance, with B plus. I'll be displaying how many students have B plus. If I start with B plus, let me just make it look nice here. I can make it bold. Yes, yeah. Now I want those students to be displayed here. Remember, the range now for the students I'll be using between here, that is A3. I'll be dealing between A3 and A. So I want to be displayed somewhere because I want now the first name, end of time, and the grade. That is what I'm interested with, the 3. If I copy there, maybe I place it here. If I place them here, let me resize well. Yes. Good. So if that is what I want now the first data, the first student to be displayed here. The first student to be displayed here. Now what you do here, now I want to take you to VBA development on how to do it. So I go to developer. If I go to developer, I go to Visual Basic. Then I'm dealing with sheet 1. That is the one with, let me see the sheet I'm dealing with. If I go here, I'm dealing with sheet 1, but this form 4 mid. Yeah. So that is what I'm dealing with. It is still under sheet 1, but form 4 mid. So if I can open it, or there is no need because I can write on a module. So if I write on a module, but I'll be referring to sheet 1, that is all form 4 mid. So I'll come here, I'll be calling form 4 mid, that is what I'm dealing with. So I can come here and say insert. I want to insert a module. So the module, I have to start with a subroutine here. That is sub find student by grade, find students by grade. I want to find students by grade. That is my subroutine. I'll have to close open bracket and close it so that the subroutine will appear. Find students by grade. Now I'll come here and start now coding. So first of all, I want to code Here, whatever I'm using here, if you look here, I'll be using the grade. That is what I'll be interested with, is grade. Now, okay, I will call it grade, is okay. So if I call it grade, that's okay. So I'll call it grade. So I'll have to dim grade. Dim grade. I've used it in small letter. Dim grade as I have to dim grade as a string, or as a string. It can be a name. And then I have here, I have to dim the last row, because dim last, I can call it last row, or final row. Last row, let me call it last row, the final row. Last row as integer. We don't know how many rows they might be. Integer, as integer. So after dimming that as integer, now I dim I as now I want to dim I as integer 2, as integer. I dim I as integer. So I'm declaring variables, the variables I'm going to use. So those are the variables I'll be using. So I'll have to start with grade now. I'll have to start with, this is sheets. I'm dealing with the form format, that is sheets. Brackets, in quotes. I'm using F4 mid. That is the one I'm dealing with. F4 mid. I close that bracket. Then that sheet dot range sheet. I was supposed to open in their bracket. Yes, dot range. And which range am I want to deal with? Dot range. From where to where? Like I'm dealing with, it should be in quotes, dot range, from where to where. So I have to, if I go to that sheet 4 here, I can see the range I'm dealing with is A. I'm dealing with A3 to, okay, first of all, where the data is to be displayed, it is I3 to L, maybe you can go to L as many as you can. To L, maybe I can talk about to L200. To L200, that is where I want the data to be displayed. That is where I want data to be displayed. So all the time, if I want to display others, so I have to clear that data. And therefore, if I want to clear all that data in between I, so it is between I3 and there is I3 to, that is colon. If I use a colon, we realize that you move from I3 to, this is I3 to L, even 200, let me talk of 200, to L200, that's to L200, and now we need to close the quotes, and then we close the bracket. So dot clear contents, we need to clear the contents in those, so that when you do, if you have done for a B+, when you do now for an A, it will clear the contents, that the B+ contents, so that we get the one with the A's. So that is what we mean dot clear contents. That's the first thing it has to do. Clear contents. Dot clear contents. That is okay. Then from there I have to set the the grade. I have to set the grade. I have to set the grade to be equal to, grade should be equal to, grade equals to sheets, which I'm dealing with this sheet, the sheets, I'm dealing with this sheet, that is sheets.range. Sheets.range. So where do I want, what am I using to filter? I am using the data in J1. I'm using data in J1 to filter, and therefore range, open the brackets, talk about in quotes J1. That's what I'm using to filter, close the quotes, close the bracket. So in J1 dot value, whichever value will be there, it is what will be displayed. The next is we talk about the last row now. We don't know where it is. So last row, talk about the last row, because I had declared last row as integer. So last row, we don't know how many they will be, so we don't know which will be the last row. So last row should be equal to, also sheet what? Sheets, that is sheets, should be equal to sheets, that is sheets. Talk about the same sheet now, this sheet. Talk about that sheets, this one, dot range. Now which is the range? The range where I will be getting the data from is from this range from A3. It's from A3 to G whatever, but I'm dealing with A3, from A3, that is the range I'll be getting data from. That is up to A200. Talk about range in quotes A, like 200, and then up to, you close the bracket, up dot the last end, that is XL up, that is, it will be looking from that one upwards, from there upwards. So that is from A200 upwards. That's where it will be checking. That's where it will be checking the people with a P plus or with an A or whichever criteria. That is XL up. It will be checking there. From there, that's from 200. You have to close that. Dot. That is dot row. So it will be checking from A200 in that sheet from 4 mid. So, and then from there we have also to now talk about I use the for loop so that it will be checking after one after another, and that's why I had to declare a variable I as integer, whereby it will be counting the number of rows up to the last row. So I'll start use the for loop. So I'll talk about for that is for I equals to, where do we start with I? The first row I'm starting with, of course, was 3. We counted it's 3. I said I3, so it's starting from I3. That's where data is. I2 to where? To the last row, to last last row, like I've written there, to last row. Then we talk about if now, if cells, if now the cells that we are talking about, if cells, I open the bracket, if cells, that is I, and the first column, that is where it will be dealing with, and the first column, whichever I, and the first column, I close now this bracket, I close the bracket, and the first column, I close the bracket. If cells I and first column, sit I and the first column, if you check where do we have the grade, it is I and which column with a grade, it is this column D, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth column. So I and the fourth column, if that one equals 2, if this one equals 2, now the grade, if it's equals to grade, and the grade, I declared it is in J, it is in J1. Yeah, if equals to grade, then what should it do? Then range, then we talk about the range. Then range, we give cells, then range cells, I'm talking about from which cell? That is from cells I, comma, from I, the third, I think it's the third, that is the third I, so it is I from the first column, it is starting from, it will be copying from this first one, I and the first column, up to I and which column? 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth column, I and the fourth column. Yeah, from I first column, so we shall be dealing I1, from I1, then we close this bracket, I1, comma, we also have cells, two cells, we open a bracket, I, comma, we realize this 4, you close the bracket, so to I4, you close the bracket, dot copy, we opened bracket, so we close another one, so it is, we shall be copying that data, dot copy, so we copy that data, then after copying that data, we will be pasting it, that is on the range, we'll be pasting it on range. Where are we pasting it? We'll be pasting it between, we said we'll be pasting it here, we'll be pasting it, we said we'll be I, at I, up to I 200, we'll be pasting it between I 200 and above. Range, I, that is I should be in quotes, range should always be in quotes when you are using VBA, I 200, it is I 200 like I said, I 200, I close the quote, I close the bracket, dot end, that's dot end, XL up, that is from there upwards, dot end, XL up, so from there upwards, and then dot offset, so it will be offsetting, that is where it gets the first data at the top, it will be moving downwards, one row downwards and no column movement. So one row downwards, that means offset, dot offset, I give it offset, let me open the bracket, one row downwards and no column movement, so it will not be changing anything on the column. So I close this bracket, dot. Now it has to paste, that is paste special, paste special, paste special. Paste special, it have to maintain the formulas and even the number format. So paste special, XL paste formulas, it will XL paste, it will have to paste formulas, paste formulas, and so it also have to maintain, and the number formats must be maintained, and the number formats and number formats have to be maintained. Then that's good. And then we talk about, we shall end the if, because I've used if there. So end if, and then we shall have next I. If it does the first one, it has to deal with the next I, it goes to the next row. Then from there we end. Let us try to debug. Compile project, it has last row as integer. Oh, I did not say dim last row as integer. So that debug, compile, next I. For I is that, and if, so next I is okay, next I. Good. Now it is you debug, compile. It seems to have no error. So if I run and try to see, there is an error still. That's range 200, range I 200 dot x dot end xlab dot offset 10 paste special xl paste formulas, in case there are formulas it will maintain the formulas, and the number formats, it will maintain the number and the number formats. Where is the issue? Range this dot xlab dot offset. Now if you check this one, if I maintain, okay, let me remove the paste paste special and see. I 200, it's okay. Dot x end xlab dot offset 1 dot paste special. Let me just paste special. Okay, so it seems to have run. Let me see, sorry. Yeah, P plus, we had one student. So if I come here and try to change to A minus, we did not have any an A minus should also. Okay, if I change A minus, I go back to my code. Okay, you can have to make your work easier, you can have insert, that is insert. You can come and insert just you insert a shape, like if I use this one, if I use it here, I say like here, I call it like find. If I go, for instance, just right click then you say assign micro. You assign it to that, you click OK. So A-, if I click find, you'll see there is one student called Peter Njega. If I wanted now another grade, like students with C++, if I say find, you'll see all of them are displayed here. If I wanted students with B, I'll just click and find them. There are only 3. So you realize that you can even set this as print area and make a pattern here for printing. Very simple work that you'll be printing and enjoying and analyzing your students without struggle. You'll be counting how many students have got A's, how many students have got B's, how many students with C's, with a very simple code like the one that you've seen here. It is so enjoyable. It is so enjoyable and so good to do this. It is so enjoyable and so good to do this. You realize that these are now students B minuses. It is a very good tool for analyzing your students and understanding them to assist them for better. Thank you for listening to this tutorial. If you haven't subscribed, ensure you subscribe so as to promote me. Thank you for listening.